All right, we're going to get this meeting started. The special call of the council will be called to order at the workshop of the workshop of the council will be called to order at 6:08 p.m. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Absolutely. Councilmember Cuadra Garcia.
Present.
Councilmember Garcia.
Present.
Vice Mayor Morera.
Present.
Mayor Dieguez.
Here.
Councilmember Fernandez.
Present.
And Councilmember Herzberg is joining us in the meantime via Zoom. And Councilmember Sanchez will be absent. Mayor, you have quorum.
Excellent. Everyone, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll go ahead and lead it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for the invocation, which will be led today by Councilman Ray Garcia.
Our has pleased, dear Lord, we thank you for the truths we have learned today and we're going to learn. We'd like you to bless this meeting and allow us to make the decisions that the residents have deserved. We thank you and we ask for your guidance. In your name, amen.
Thank you very much. You may be seated. All right, everybody, we are here, as the Vice Mayor corrected me, on a workshop where the town staff will go ahead and introduce the proposed budget for the upcoming fiscal year. This is a workshop, so no official decisions will be made this evening. Rather, next week is when we will be making initial decisions, such as the initial millage rate, right? So just bear that in mind. I know some of you may have just received the presentation, which we also just received recently. And so we're going to take some time to first have it presented and start the initial process of chewing it up, providing feedback to staff. Obviously, we look forward to hearing from all of you, including our committee members. And from there, come next week, that's when we will begin to take some preliminary decisions related to the budget. With that, Mr. Manager, you want to go ahead and kick this off?
Yes, Mayor, thank you very much. If we can put the presentation up on the IT, if we can put the presentation up. There we go. All right, go to the next page. All right. As the mayor stated, tonight is a working meeting to prepare the council for the special call meeting that is going to be held next week, next Tuesday. Tonight is not about approving a millage. Again, that will happen next Tuesday at the special call meeting. Tonight is not about approving a budget. In fact, next Tuesday is not about approving a budget. There is budget information that is included in this presentation and will be included in your packet next Tuesday. That is only as a reference and as a guide. The only thing you'll be doing next Tuesday is setting, not even setting the millage, it is setting the maximum millage, the cap. When the budget is approved in September, you will also be setting the final millage. And in September, when the budget is approved and you'll be setting the final millage, you can reduce it from what you set it at next Tuesday. You just cannot increase it from what the level that you set next Tuesday. So we thought it may be valuable for the members of the public as well as some members of the council that are new to the council. I wanted just to go over, and this may seem to maybe to all of you very elementary, but I think it may be beneficial for the members of the public. So what is a millage rate? The millage rate is an amount of tax, so it's like a percentage levied per $1,000 of a property's taxable value. 1 mil is equal to $1 for tax of $1,000 of assessed value. So what's the purpose? Millage rates fund municipal services like public safety, police and fire, infrastructure, parks, and other essential services. Currently, ad valorem revenue, which is derived from the millage rate, is the town's largest source of revenue within the general fund. So how do we do the calculation? The formula that is used is the taxable value, and these terms are sometimes very, very confusing. When somebody takes a look at their record, and I'll show you in a moment, there's multiple terms that are used on the property appraiser's website. When you get your assessment every year, you have different terms like market value, taxable value, assessed value, and all of these have different meanings. But ultimately, there's a number which is the taxable value, and you divide that by 1,000 and multiply it by the millage rate, and that's the amount of tax that you owe the town of Miami Lakes on at the end every year. So taxable value, there's the property's assessed value minus any exemptions like homestead exemption, senior exemption, widower exemption, etc. So just as a point of reference, and I know for those in the audience, if you have a handout, it's going to be easier to read. On the screen is difficult. But we wanted to show you, this is a snapshot of a sample property here in the town of Miami Lakes. It tells you, this is from the property appraiser's website, and it shows you how in the areas that are highlighted, you'll see a number for market value. Market value is probably even less than real market value, but they call it market value. From there, the property appraiser has a number that they use as the assessed value, and then from there they reduce the exemptions that each property qualifies for. Every property will qualify for different levels of exemptions based on the owners of the property. But in this example, you'll see that's highlighted there in yellow in the center column from last year, the $50,000 of exemptions, and then that you come up with the number at the bottom of that page, which is taxable value. So you already see that the taxable value is much less than somebody's market value. So people sometimes say, well, my neighbor sold his house for $1 million. But it doesn't matter what they sold. That's market value, assessed value, taxable value. There's multiple terms, and the tax is always based on that final number, which is called the taxable value. The next item, the next page here, just shows a quick little snapshot from this same property, and it shows you how this property qualified for Save Our Homes, which is something that is a state law that maximizes how much a property can increase from year to year. The homestead exemption, and in the state of Florida, we have a second homestead exemption, and that second homestead exemption now, based on state law, is indexed for inflation on a year-to-year basis. So this property, the one that you saw on the previous page, has a taxable value of $312,626. You divide it by 1,000 and multiply this year the current millage rate that we currently have in the town, and that this person last year owed to the town $648.14. So based on that property, we're using the same property in all these examples just for it to make a little more sense. When somebody gets their tax bill, what's important to understand is there's a lot of taxing authorities, multiple taxing authorities that will show up and constitute your entire tax bill. So they include the county, it includes the school board, it includes special districts. All of each will have their own millage rate. Normally on somebody's tax bill, the amount of taxes that they pay to the town really only represents between 10 and 12% of a total tax bill. So once again, looking at this same property, if you see the areas highlighted in the center, that is the municipal portion of this tax bill. So somebody, this sample property, like we said, paying to the town of Miami Lakes $648.14. Their entire tax bill is over $5,500. The largest portions go to the Miami-Dade County public schools, and then you also have water management district, the independent districts, the fire district, and things of that nature. Next page. So just a quick recap of some of the principal dates that go in through this whole process. July the 1st, the property appraiser certified the total tax base for the town of Miami Lakes. The next milestone, which will be next Tuesday, is the Miami Lakes setting the tentative millage rate. Why do we call it the tentative millage rate? The tentative millage rate is because, as we said, in September, the millage rate can go down. So by August the 4th, the town has to report to the state of Florida what is going to be the tentative millage rate. By August 24th, trim notices will go out to all property owners indicating the the proposed millage rates, the dates and times of the different budget hearings. Finally, in September, the town of Miami Lakes will hold 2 budget hearings. At those budget hearings, that is where the council will set the final millage rate and adopt the budget for next fiscal year. In the town of Miami Lakes, the fiscal year starts October the 1st. So, just to put it in perspective, the current millage rates, this is based on the current year that we're in. It's not talking about next year. Obviously, we haven't set the millage rate for next year. Just setting the millage, or looking at the millage rate for this current year. The millage rate for Miami Lakes currently sits at the 4th lowest millage rate in the municipalities within Miami-Dade County. If you look at the historical millage rates, these are only for the town of Miami Lakes. You look at history, this goes back to as far back as fiscal year '04, which was from October of 2003 through September of 2004. It started as high as 2.968, and it goes down all the way to the current fiscal year that you see all the way on the right, 2.0732. You'll notice the fourth one from the left at 2.7403 in 2007, and I'll get to in a minute exactly why that's colored in a different color. So, if you look at millage rate scenarios, what we have in this package is going to be 2 different millage rate scenarios or options or things for the council to consider. The first one would be a fully funded budget. What does that mean, right? So fully funded budget means, for instance, for public safety, overtime is funded. All of our special details are fully funded. For the auto theft details, the speeding details, the Christmas, the Grinch Busters details, all of those details are fully funded. We also are fully funding and making the full contribution, which has been an area where the council in the past few years has looked for some money to redivert. But in this budget, the infrastructure sinking fund, which helps to fund our capital replacement program, is fully funded. All of our green space and parks are maintained and fully funded, which means all of our tree trimming cycles are fully funded in this budget, tree removals, tree installation, all of our mowing cycles in all of our major parks, as well as our medians and all of our pocket parks are all fully funded. Mulching and playground surfaces are fully funded. The replacement of the median flowers is fully funded for once a quarter to be changed out. The beach sand in our beach parks are also fully, the restoration of that beach sand is fully funded. The cul-de-sacs is fully funded. All of our athletic field maintenance, including the once a year maintenance, is completely fully funded. Our pressure washing is fully funded. The right-of-way maintenance, which is very important to many of our town residents, our litter crew is fully funded. And what does that mean? That means that there'll be 3 crews for the litter crew every day of the week. So 3 crews, 7 days a week. All of our committee budgets and events would be fully funded in this budget. And then finally, there'd be a cost of living adjustment for staff. So the next page is a very important slide. So when I say fully funded in all of the list that I just drew out for you, fully funded budget equates to a general fund millage rate of 2.6372. That would generate $13,133,000 into our general fund. Our current millage rate is at 2.0732. It would only generate a little over $10 million. That makes a difference of $2.8 million difference. So, the next slide, a flat millage rate equals, by default, because 2 and 2 is always 4, it represents a list of painful cuts for our residents. Okay, what are those painful cuts? So, under police, obviously the regular staffing of police would be adhered to, but there'd be no traffic enforcement details, no burglary details, and no holiday details. So the Grinch Busters would not be funded, or the burglary and the traffic enforcement details. We would eliminate the over $300,000 that goes into our infrastructure sinking fund on an annual basis would be completely zeroed out. It'd be eliminated. We'd have to reduce park maintenance services. So the mow cycles in the pocket parks would be reduced from 35 to 30 cycles, so the grass in the pocket parks would be higher at certain times of the year. Eliminate the mulch application, so there'd be no mulch replenishment in any of our pocket parks or any of our big athletic field parks. The athletic fields would have to eliminate the top dressing from the, that's part of the annual maintenance of the fields. We would have to, the aeration of the athletic fields at the large parks, we'd have to cut it by 1 and do it only 11 times a year. 11 times a year. The fertilization of the grass in all of our pocket parks would be reduced by 1 cycle. We would have to eliminate completely the phrase mowing, which is done as annual maintenance in all of our athletic fields. There would be no funding in this budget for replacement of park equipment. So if a swing breaks, if a slide breaks, any of the park equipment that breaks would not be funded in this. And the beach sand refurbishment would have to wait until the following fiscal year for it to be done. Under the right-of-way maintenance, the cycles of mowing would also be reduced from 35 to 5. So the medians all the way up and down Miami Lakes Drive, those mowing cycles would have to be reduced. We would eliminate the mulch cycles in all of those areas also. Eliminate or reduce the fertilization frequency from 4 to 3. The flower change out in the medians along Miami Lakes Drive and 67th Avenue and 87th Avenue would be reduced from once every 3 months to once every 4 months. And most significantly, we'd have to reduce the litter, debris, and doggy station services. So currently, as I stated a moment ago, we have 3 crews, 7 days a week. In this reduced budget, we'd have to go down to only 1 crew for 3 days a week and 2 crews 4 days a week. We would reduce tree trimming. In this scenario here, we would have to completely eliminate committee budgets and events, except for the major events that we hold in the town, which would be the Veterans Day Parade, 4th of July, and this year uniquely, we'd fund the 25-year town anniversary. We would also then be unable to give any cost of living adjustment to staff. We would have to eliminate all travel, training, and education for council and for staff. If you look at the next slide, this is a pie chart that describes the different sources of revenue into the general fund. So if you look at the big piece of the pie on the right, the blue area that's called ad valorem taxes, that is really the only piece of this pie that we're talking about today, because that is what is derived from the millage rate. So the rate that is set by the council as a cap, and then eventually in September as a final rate, will derive how much of that blue area we fund. If you look at the next pie chart, this one is from the expense side. So this emphasizes the priorities that the town council sets on behalf of the town residents. Public safety obviously being a very important priority for the town. We also prioritize our parks and recreation and all of the beautification of the town. So that's another large slice of the pie. Obviously, the public works area near the top, that's a big pie, slice of the pie. And then obviously all the people who make everything happen here, the administration, and then our debt payments are also in here, in this pie. So if you look at the major categories in the next slide, the major categories this is obviously not the entire budget. These are the categories. This is a compressed version of the budget. We have the two scenarios that we showed if we were to leave the millage rate flat at 2.0732, and then if we were to increase the millage to accommodate a fully funded budget. You'll look at it by categories there and exactly what are the areas that would be harmed the most based on our recommendations. Now, if you look at the next slide, this one is very telling. With the two scenarios that we've kind of laid out for you, again, the difference between the two millage rates would be a difference of $2.8 million. The average homesteaded taxable value, so we're back to the definitions of the different values. So the average taxable household in Miami Lakes is a property that has a taxable value of $293,000. All right. For this, as just a snapshot, it's just an example for everybody to kind of take in, the two millage rates represent a difference of $165 a year, $13.81 a month. So for $13.81 a month, you can fully fund the budget. If you want to maintain the millage rate at a flat rate, people would save, the average homeowner in Miami Lakes would save $13.81 every month. So what's important to kind of understand is, how did we get here, right? So if you remember the bar chart that I showed you earlier, that I'll show you now in a minute, there was a large drop in the millage rate in fiscal year 2006 and 2007. It went from 2.7403 to 2.4795. And you say, well, that was so long ago, it doesn't really matter. Well, it does matter, because sometimes these decisions and these changes sometimes take several years for them to catch up to you, right? And what this one did, unbeknownst to the state legislature and the council who had to implement the state mandate, is unbeknownst to them, is the very following year was the financial crisis of 2008. So they had this significant drop in the millage rate, and the very next year we had the financial crisis that obviously led to a depreciation in many property values. Some of the other more recent changes that the council implemented were the adoption of a 2% millage decrease in fiscal year 2022 to 2023. So it went from 2.3127 to 2.2664. That happened 2 fiscal years ago. Well, actually 3 fiscal years ago. 2 fiscal years ago, we adopted a rollback rate. And the rollback rate actually was implemented not in September, but it was implemented in the July setting of the millage rate. So in July, the town council voted to drop the millage rate to the rollback rate, and that was a significant drop just 2 fiscal years ago in 2023. It went from 2.2664 to 2.0732. In addition, over the last, since at least in the time that I've been here in 6 years, for multiple reasons, we've had to use one-time revenues to cover and balance the budget. Obviously, anybody who's in the business world, anybody who's had to balance a budget understands that it's not a good practice, especially on a recurring basis or on an ongoing basis, to use one-time revenues to fund ongoing and recurring expenses. So in fiscal 2023-24, there was a one-time transfer of almost $500,000 from the Miami Lakes Optimist Capital Fund into the budget that year to balance the budget. Thankfully, the council, just a few months ago, in the carry forward, moved the money back to restore the money that had been transferred, and now the Miami Lakes Optimist Capital Fund is once again properly funded. In 2024-25, there was a transfer to balance the budget in September of $250,000. It was restored to the senior center project by applying impact fees, but there was a transfer, because it was general fund money, from the senior center into the general fund just to balance that year's budget. All right, now, the bar chart that I showed you earlier, it's back again, and I just want you to see that the years that these changes happen of lowering the millage rate happened in fiscal 07, fiscal 23, and fiscal 24. Those were significant events that made a significant impact on the general fund. The reason why the one over towards the left in fiscal 07 is important is the millage rate that is being proposed or being considered here by staff for a fully funded budget of 2.6 is a millage rate that has been had here in the town. It's not an unheard of millage rate. It is a millage rate that existed in fiscal year 07 was the closest year that you can get there. So it's a millage rate that has existed in the town. We're not asking or looking for the millage rate to be doubled, tripled. All we are is looking for the millage rate to be restored to a millage rate that was somewhere between the fiscal of 07 and fiscal of 08. Now, some of the impact to our budget also obviously comes on the from the expense side, right? So it wasn't only on the revenue side with regard to how did we get here. So we've obviously had significant inflation and higher service costs over the last, especially the last 5 years. If you look there, the CPI-U in South Florida averages almost 6% over the last 6 years, and there was a period there of 23, 22 that they were even higher than we have seen in decades. So that inflation and higher service costs has led to increase in many of our contracts, including patrol services, including townwide service contracts like for landscaping, security guard services, etc. We also had a significant legal settlement that was settled a couple years ago. On the next page, we have salaries and benefits that have also been impacted by many of these increases. The Florida retirement system, of which we're a member of, but yet it's determined by the state legislature. The rate that we pay for employees is went up from 13.6 to almost a little over 14. Cost of living adjustments for the staff over the past 5 years have averaged just over 2.3%. Our health insurance is estimated to go up from this year to next fiscal year by about 10%. We don't have the final numbers yet there, but that's just an estimate. The same holds true for the property, casualty, and workers' comp insurance. We haven't gotten the final proposal from the insurance company yet, but they're estimating somewhere in the neighborhood of 10% increase for next fiscal year. So, where do we look? We're looking to the future, right? So what the town staff, what I have provided for you here is basically two options. Option A, provide services to meet our residents' expectations. And in our estimation, that is the fully funded budget. Option B is a budget that would be reduced services, but it maintains the current tax rate. Now, there is at least one measure that can be considered by the council that will help temper this significant increase. And I know, listen, I'm a taxpayer. Any increase that I'm proposing here or talking about or floating, it will come out of my family's budget too, every single penny. So I'd like to, we look high and low to see how we can temper these proposed or projected increases. One way would be the FP&L franchise fee. Currently, the FP&L franchise fee is a franchise fee that is arranged between municipalities in Miami-Dade County and the Florida Power and Light Utility. So currently, the maximum that is allowed within the franchise fee agreement that we have with FP&L is as high as 6%. The council, we adopted a franchise fee of less than that, of 3%, several years ago when we negotiated our own standalone franchise fee, but it can go as high as 6%. So one of the options that I'm floating out here for your consideration is to increase the FP&L franchise fee from 3% to 6%. And for those in the audience, and what that means is it's a percentage on electrical consumption, right? So there's a significant portion of the FP&L franchise fee that is paid by commercial properties, industrial properties, retail stores, all of that is paid. So any electrical consumption is paid, and there's this fee that's on there. And one of the other reasons why we are floating this as an option or something to be considered is FP&L had a significant experience year the last 2 years. They have a 10% hurricane surcharge on all of our FPL bills currently. That FP&L hurricane surcharge is set to expire at the end of this calendar year, so at the end of December. So what we would be proposing would be to increase the FP&L franchise fee from 3 to 6% as of January. And yes, it's an increase. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. But from a consumer's standpoint, somebody who's paying, instead of seeing a full 10% reduction when the hurricane surcharge comes off their bill in January, they would see a less reduction, only to 7%. And in the meantime, we can implement this increase from 3 to 6%. So what does that do? The fully funded budget millage can be reduced from 2.673 to 2.600. My proposal in here would be to modify the ordinance that we currently have that has a set dollar amount of $1.275 million going into the general fund for general operations and increase that to the full 3%. The first 3% would stay in general fund for general operations, and that's how we would be able to reduce the proposed millage rate to 2.6100. That means an extra $225,000 stays in the general fund. What this also does is the second 3% would be used, and $1.5 million annually would be to adequately fund infrastructure. I don't want to, I don't have to tell the council, they get the calls more than I do, but the majority of our residents, the calls that we get in the town, council members get at home, is folks that are looking for sidewalks, trees, streets, lighting defects, all of those are the most important things to folks. They see it when they walk out their door. So what this proposal here, moving this from 3 to 6%, would be, it would have an extra $1.5 million annually for infrastructure. That could be used for future stormwater projects. It could be used for additional public works projects like sidewalks, streets, lighting, and trees. And a portion of it can be held back to, used for funding of the MLOP redevelopment plan that our staff laid out for the council just a couple months ago. This is one option of one way to pay for that modified MLOP redevelopment plan. So, the next bar chart is telling because it looks at the FP&L franchise fee rates in all of Dade County for all of the cities. And there's one glaring thing that is unmistakable, and it's almost right in the middle. The red bar chart that we have looks at our millage rate at 3%, not our millage rate, our franchise fee rate at 3%, where every other city in Miami-Dade County has them at almost 6%, except for Miami Beach at 5.29%. Everybody else is at either 6% or at 5.9%. So that, again, is that one idea that we're laying out for you to consider. The next slide just talks about our next steps, which is the special call meeting that we're going to have, we spoke about next Tuesday. That is where you will set the tentative millage rate. So it's the cap, the maximum millage rate possible for this year. It is not approving the budget. It is not approving the final millage rate. It is setting the tentative millage rate. After that, there'll be a budget sunshine meeting for all funds Wednesday, August 27th. The first budget hearing that I mentioned earlier will be on Thursday, September 11th. And the second and final budget hearing will be Thursday, September 25th. That'll be the final adoption of the millage rate and the fiscal year 25-26 budget. And Mayor, and that is our presentation. I know it's a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. But before we go into council discussion, it occurred to me that I skipped over public comments in my zeal to get the meeting started. But I would say it worked out because now everyone's had the benefit of the manager's summary of the proposed budget. So with that, though, we're going to take a step back for a second and go into public comment. Mr. Clerk, if you can please read the rules into the record.
Of course. Good evening, and thank you for joining us to the Sunshine meeting. If you are here and want to provide public comments, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. We afford 3 minutes for each speaker. And so again, please feel free to approach the podium, state your name and address for the record, and continue having a good meeting. Thank you.
Carlos Andres, 14530 Dade Pine Avenue, Miami Lakes, Florida, 33014. Council, Town Management, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for that presentation, Town Manager. Definitely clears up things. I know that tonight is, just the beginning of a few meetings up ahead, but, most of you have, all of you speak to residents, right? On a daily, weekly, monthly basis, and, some of the things that, I hear a lot from neighbors that they want to see, from our town is tree trimming, traffic, safety. Miami Lakes Optimist Park comes up quite a lot. We love our events. People, are constantly, thriving about our events and how good, the committees do in putting them together. Some things I don't know if that millage rate includes the potential lawsuit with the state, related to blasting. These are all common things that, I'm sure you all hear. But, one thing that I want to be very clear about is that, we're competing with other municipalities. We're competing with Hialeah, Doral, and, they're looking to us and how beautiful our town looks. Personally, I'm very proud of the town management. Any issue I have as a town resident, they're here to help, myself and neighbors. So I know that today, again, it's just setting your ceiling. Might be best to set it a little higher and, work towards, the next meetings and make sure that you can balance certain things. But, FPL is actually a great, solution or temporary fix. I mean, I've personally had paying more electricity than ever, so Um, you know, and now I'm reading, you know, from a website that they're going to increase the rates even more. You know, I think it might be an opportunity to, you know, maybe give them the punch right back. So, thank you.
Welcome.
Good evening. Felicia Salazar, 6875 Queen Palm Terrace. I'm also here on behalf of our Cultural Affairs Committee. And first, thank you for the presentation and for keeping the money for the 4th of July. As you can see in the little chart that I gave you, is our most biggest event of all our events that we do. I don't want to dwell on this, but I want you to think about this when you start reviewing the budget, is that we have a lot of activities going on, and as you know, cost of doing business with many of the vendors goes up. So take into consideration, just see if we've been doing pretty good in keeping some events, and we're trying to save money by allocating money to do more for the money. So that's as part of the cultural affairs portion. As far as the town itself, is one thing that I noticed. I don't know if it's the residents that do not. It's the litter. I see a lot of litter around the streets, especially the main ones. So I don't know who's either the county responsible for picking those up or your service. So I think that's something that deters from our beautiful town. So I think that we should keep our town beautiful. I know our slogan is growing beautifully, but I think we need to strive to keep making it better. I've been here a long time, and I've seen the changes. Some are good, some are bad. So try your best to keep us good, and all of you, since you're new, and but whatever we as residents and as volunteers, you need any help from us, let us know. Thank you.
Thank you, Felicia. Next speaker in chambers. Welcome, my friend.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Lourdes Corvo. My address is 8464 Northwest 165th Street. And I'm here on behalf of the Elder Affairs Committee. I know you talked all about the budget and getting rid of it, but I think what we need to remember is that the elderly really rely on us for their health and their well-being. I say most of you have attended our functions, and you see that it really is not just a social occasion, but it actually helps them maintain their sanity, and it helps them with any diseases that they possibly can have, mental and physical, because we feed them, and a lot of them don't have money to eat on a regular basis. So whenever we have a function, I would say we always feed them. I mean, there are some exceptions when we take them to the ball games that we don't feed them, but we try and feed them at every function so that they have a meal, and it's a balance, somewhat of a balanced meal. We're also giving back to the community because we're buying the meals from only people here in Miami Lakes. So we're sponsoring the business owners of Miami Lakes. We provide approximately, we're ordering 130 meals at every function that we are doing for all the meet and eats and for the socials. And I tell you, we have people begging us to increase that number. Our budget does not permit it. And we have numerous sponsors which have been really helpful to our committee, because a meal right now is costing us an average of $12 to $15. And you can imagine, you can do that math and determine how much we go through on our bingos alone, and then our socials. And we have a bingo at least once a month, and we try and have at least a social 4 times a year. That does not include the field trips that we've done. This year we've taken them to the movies. We've gone to, how many movies have we gone to? 4. We've gone to 4 movies this year, and the seniors love it because they get food when we take them to the movies. So they get their popcorn and their soda, and I think it's a hot dog or chicken fingers. Huh? Hot dog. We have taken them to the theater, to the actual theater, and they got a full lunch, a box lunch, when we got to the theater, and then they got to see, what was it?
The girl is trained, we're going to see step by step tomorrow.
See, they go to the, we went to South Pacific, but we've taken them to all, and they're asking us for more. They're asking us for more. They can't afford it on their own. They can't afford the South Pacific. We charged actually for that one. We charged them $20.
20.
And then they can continue, or I can use
Sure.
part of their minutes.
Yeah, hey, come on up.
Come on, come on.
We took them to see South Pacific. They did pay
Wait,
$20.
I'm sorry, before you start,
Oh,
name and address.
Maria Borges, 13988 Lake Lore Court. It's Miami Lakes. When we went with our seniors, we did take them out to see South Pacific, and they paid a $20 fee to go, and they got a box lunch. But typically, when we take them places, we've taken them to the art museum, we've taken them to the science museum, and we always try to give them a box lunch and a bottle of water when they go. For a lot of them, this is their only social outlet. They may have children, but their children in our society now, they don't all live here. So a lot of them are alone here. And so this is their opportunity to have some kind of social interaction. So we do serve a very valuable service. I mean, I understand nobody wants to raise taxes, but when you weigh the consequence of cutting this out, I think it's gonna do more harm than good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Is there another speaker here in chambers that would like to come up to the podium?
Through the chair,
Mr.
fairly quickly,
Chelas.
Mayor. I forgot to mention that if they are participating from home, and if you want to make a public comment, please raise your hand by clicking on the reactions icon. Participants will be allowed to speak one at a time as they raise the icon appears. Okay.
Excellent, thank you. Mr.
Good evening,
Chelas.
everybody. Yes, how you guys doing? 1530, Carlos Padilla, 15301 Northwest 67th Avenue. We're here to representing the Economic Development Committee. So we're in the meeting and we're representing things. So in reality, what we want to ask is, and hearing this presentation before that, which I think very clarifying a lot of my questions that I had before regarding the budget and everything. We as the Economic Development Committee members, we're trying to figure it out how to make the economics of Miami Lakes better, right? But with a $19,000 budget, is very limited to do an impact, right? So we're requesting a $100,000 increase in our budget to be able to do something that we really will benefit the city, right? The first thing that we do and seeing this is what we want is to increase the value prices of the homes. To be able to do, which I will leave this with Mr. Edward to pass along with you guys, is that positioning Miami Lakes as the premier destination to live, work, and invest, okay? I think that as fellow mentioned it, we have competitors, right? Doral, Miami Gardens, the new city behind us, that is not actually promoting. So we have to promote ourselves to bring the things community, to bring all the resources that we have. We have resources from the Grahams. We currently have resources that we are implementing, but we're not working together. So this proposal is to put everybody together to work to a common goal, which is making Miami Lakes more knowledgeable. Nobody knows about Miami Lakes anymore. Nobody knows the great places that they have to come to eat, to shop, to park, to anything. So the idea is to promote Miami Lakes so people like, for example, I know that we have been trying to come with Trader Joe's or a Whole Foods to come to the town, but they see the numbers and they see this is a small town, they want to come. The idea of this is to create a marketing campaign to be able to make Miami Lakes relevant. So people hear about Miami Lakes, hear about the events that we're doing. We have certain events that we do spend money that not a lot of people come. We as community, we're very united, but we do see all the faces the same times. And the businesses in Miami Lakes and the community, it's not enough with the Miami Lakers. We need to invest for outside. So people, when they go out from Doral, they come and they think about to come to eat to Miami Lakes. When they want to shop certain things, when they want to do lasers, when they want to do that. We have a great movie theater, right? Nobody knows that they exist, right? Those all the things that nobody else besides the Miami Lakers, not that we have great. And the idea of this proposal is to do something that really impact the economic of everybody. Because if the house prices increase and everything, we'll have more money for the budget. So I'm gonna leave this, and this is the idea that we're presenting as the economic development. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Rudy Blanco, 14406 Northwest 88th Avenue, Miami Lakes, Florida, and Serenity Point. We're facing tough times. I mean, there's just no doubt about it. Miami Lakes, the county, we even seeing what's going on there. So we really cannot ask for a lot of people. The state, county, even the federal government. I mean, it's really tough times everywhere. So, harping, I'm going to wear two hats now. Economic development, which you know I'm a part of, and also eventually I'll get into blasting. But as to economic development, I echo the sentiments of Matthew Casamayor, the chairman of the Economic Development, and Padilla. We need business. We need more businesses to come. We need more people to come to Miami Lakes. It's one of the other legs that we have of the revenue pie, of the revenue chart that our town manager was mentioning. And that's one of the things that we just need. We can't live without other people coming into this town. We need more business. We need, and it's not just from our neighbors or our residents, it's basically from outside of town, other municipalities, other areas, and we need to promote Miami Lakes much more so that more business thrives in our area, our taxis, our restaurants. We got to fill them up, but it's tough. I understand that that's a very tough task to do. Going back then to my other hat of the blasting has stayed pretty much the same. Our budget's not going to change. It's pretty much the same, 7,500. But I was, wondering how much will the legal, situation would be. Our budget is there, and I know that's primordial that we get this blasting situation out of the way too. I think that's key that we handle that for our residents and for our businesses, our residents, and everybody else. Once and for all, we get rid of this torment and leave it out. How much is the cost? I know the mayor mentioned that last time. That's a big thing that we got to factor that into our budget now. So I just leave that. How much is it? How much is it going to be? I'm sure the town attorney and everybody else are working on that and figuring out how much that would be. But we need to know that. That's vital and that's crucial that we have that. But our budget will be pretty much the same. But we need more businesses, going back to economic development, and we got to hold the fort. We got to see how much we could do in other areas of revenues too, because we need a lot of the services. We're a small town. We're not a huge town. We need some of that, and we have some juggling to do, I think, and really some deep dive thinking within the next couple of days, within the next month, and so forth. And like always, I'm here for you guys. So thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Are there any other speakers in chambers? Going once, going twice. Mr. Clerk, are there any remote public comments?
Yes, I believe Boris was the first one to raise their hand.
Mr. Foster.
Boris, if you want, go ahead and unmute yourself and welcome to the meeting. Boris, we can't hear you. Unmute your mic there. Nothing yet, sir.
Well, while IT works with Mr. Foster to try and get his audio going, can we see if there is another speaker perhaps
Yeah.
that we can go to?
Yes, Boris, give us one moment as we work on that. I know the phone number ending in 8788 also wanted to speak. So the phone number ending in 8788, if you want, go ahead and raise your hand, unmute yourself, and welcome to the meeting.
And again, it may be an issue on our side, so we're gonna check that out, but again, the number ending, what were the ending digits?
8788.
8788. If you can, unmute yourself, and please go ahead and introduce who you are and your address, and then you have your 3 minutes. And then we will come back to you, Mr. Foster.
And I am unmuted.
Oh, I believe that is Ms. Reynolds. Hey, can we turn up her volume, please? We can barely hear her in chambers. Ms. Reynolds, please continue.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you, but we need IT to turn you up further.
A little louder, IT.
Try again, Ms. Reynolds.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Oh, okay. I could hear Boris clearly, so something is wrong in the chambers, because I'm not sure why. Again, Esperanza Reynolds, and I live in Lake Glen Ellen. I am very surprised that the attachments of what was presented was not made available to the public, so it caught me by surprise that you were going to go through this. But nevertheless, just listening to some of the comments before I get into what I wanted to say, is something that we already sent a clear message that we did not want to spend money on the Optimus Park, and yet the Optimus Park seems to be mentioned all the time. And then when they talk about the elderly having issues with making payments, how can we increase Florida Power and Light if that is key to our survival? And then next, why don't you work on trying to reduce the taxes that the elderly actually pay, so we can have the dignity of pay for our own, and not have to say at the only time that I eat is when I eat because the group gives me food. And then I looked at the numbers of elderly that live in the town, and there's over 5,000, and yet when you go to these meetings, there's always the same 100 group of people that seem to gather, so something is really wrong with this picture. But what I wanted to actually discuss, and I thought that it was just to try to offer ideas for the budget, was with regards to the special taxing district. There seemed to have been a lot of conversation about the difficulty of conducting an election in particularly in Section 1. And the truth of the matter is that we need to get proactive. If we were able to do an election in 1994, when there was not half of the things that we have now, it's very surprising that we cannot do it now. And the key is to obtain the list of all of the property folios in each STD from the property appraiser's office or the functioning HOAs. Through the property appraiser's office, determine the owner on record and if the property is homesteaded, and then not send it to renters, not send it to anyone, but the petition, once it is filed from us to you as to what it is that we want, it just goes out to the community and the community can vote. And I wanted to offer many ideas about the budget, but I think that this is not the right venue. So I'll wait until you have the meeting where we can offer the ideas for the budget. Sounds good?
Thank you, Ms. Reynolds. Let's try Mr. Foster again. And Mr. Foster, if you can please unmute yourself, and let's see if we can give this another go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Oh,
Excellent.
fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much. Boris Foster, 15221 Menteith Place. Good evening, Mayor and council members. As you consider upcoming budget, I respectfully ask that you be fully aware of the statutes and ordinances that govern your authority, especially as it relates to the special taxing districts. For most budget items, you have broad discretion, and we hope that you will use your good judgment and common sense in making these decisions. However, the special taxing district budgets are different. These districts are not under the broad council discretion. You are the governing body. As the governing body, should simply manage the services and infrastructure that are listed in each of the district ordinances. The governing body is not there to change the services that the majority of owners petition and pay to obtain. The services in the ordinances are legally defined, they're owner requested, and the owners and the governing body are bound by the ordinance. I have heard it said that the purpose of these districts This is usually said when someone wants to add services not in the ordinances. If there is a purpose, it is not a security general purposes. The purpose is very specific to fund only the infrastructure and services that were petitioned for by the majority of owners and then approved by referendum by the residents. If if a resident from section 1 asks for an ornamental lighting, holiday decorations, cameras, enhanced landscaping, or anything else, there is only one appropriate response. Where are the signatures of the at least 50% of the owners? In section 1, that would be over 420 other owners. When discussions arise about district services, the district ordinances must serve as the starting and ending point. If the requested items are not in the ordinances, then regardless of the good intentions or how much sense it makes, it must be sent to the owners to receive the majority approval. Special tax and districts are not for well-meaning additions and that increase our taxes. The services are grassroots in origin, and any service that must start that way, that is with the owner's petition. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Foster. Mr. Clerk, are there any other remote public comments?
At the moment, there are none.
Excellent. Well, with that, public comments are now closed, and so I will open it up now for myself and my colleagues to speak. I'll go first. Again, just want to remind everybody that this is just a presentation of the budget. We're going to have at least another week to go ahead and review it and digest it and begin our process of getting information. I would encourage my colleagues to bring out your pencils and to start working with staff on ways that we can make sure that we get the best budget possible for our residents and that balances the need for core services with keeping in mind the financial situation that exists out there, right? Inflation is up, and also the cost of living generally has gone up. Well, that is inflation, but you understand what I'm trying to say, that people's budgets are tight, and of course, though, we have core services that we need to provide. But this is something that I've been through before, as have I believe Councilman Garcia has also been with me in some dire straits, at least when I first got on the council in 2019, or rather when we were setting the 2019-2020 budget. We were down almost $1 million that year, and yet we were able to find a way to go ahead and close that gap substantially. And then another thing that I want you to keep in mind is that typically with our carry forward amendment, we're usually able to replenish certain cuts that had to be made. So bear in mind that we may need to make some cuts temporarily, and then we will we always have the option later of replenishing those funds at a future date. Obviously, again, we're running up against a couple of things this year. Certain mandated increases in the police budget, as well as finalizing the settlement with former Mayor Pizzi. We have one more payment to make there, and then that will go away. And this is also, I just want to take advantage for purposes of, being that it was a big issue in the last campaign. This is why I was not in favor of it, even though I want to, of adding more officers, especially using carry forward funds to go ahead and get that done, right? That is a one-time shot that you get with carry forward funds that adds to your baseline budget. And this is the importance of being careful before we take on any new spending initiatives. With that said, I also wanted to point out or address Ms. Reynolds' concerns with respect to the Optimus Park. I just want to point out that under the new phased-in approach that we are having a conversation about, but I don't think anyone is necessarily pushing full steam ahead on that project. A good chunk of the money that would come from that would not be from recurring revenues. It would be from money intended for capital improvements and development, right? And with the new phased-in approach, we're using and working with the footprint as it exists and enhancing the facilities that are currently there in a way that would not substantially add to our recurring expenses the same way had the bond gone through in 2020. So, and again, I don't know of anybody up here that is rushing into getting that project started right now. So I don't think that that is necessarily something the next fiscal year that we have to be worried about. Speaking for myself, as far as what my priorities will be as we begin this budget cycle, I am always loath to raise the property tax rate. The argument's always it's $13 here, $12 there, $9 there, whatever the case might be. So I don't like to use that, especially because residents don't have control over their assessed values, right, or their taxable values, right. Now, with the franchise fee in the past, that is something I've been willing to look at, and I'm willing to look at it this year as a temporary measure to try and close this gap. I do want to sit down with staff and the manager to try to see, perhaps if there are other areas of the budget that we can tighten up, at least on a temporary basis, in order to not have to rely so much on an increase. And I think that for the committees, I understand my friends on economic development. I'm going to take a look at the plan that you presented. But I would expect that the committee budgets will likely remain flat this year. In the past, the town has pursued money for an economic development study, which as part of that, if I recall correctly, the scope included a marketing plan. Perhaps that's something we can look into. Perhaps we can look at other sources as well. There's bound to be some other organization out there that provides grants for this purpose, because I agree with you. We need to do a better job of marketing the town. It's one of the best kept secrets, even though we're getting better, right? I certainly been more active out there, making sure people know about the town. I know many of my colleagues have also been more active in promoting our businesses and making sure our friends that live elsewhere know of the town and what we provide in terms of amenities like Chella's, right? And Carlos, that I am your #1 fan. So I'm there all the time. I take my meetings there as often as I can. Most recently being there for brunch. Those are some of my preliminary thoughts. Again, I would expect the committee budgets to remain flat, although I would ask the committees, especially elderly affairs, that typically have an easier time. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm just saying an easier time getting sponsors compared to other committees like, let's say, public safety. This might be a good year to try to see, where we can maybe find additional sponsors to supplement. I have gotten some calls from others that want to increase the number of bingos or luncheons, et cetera. And I totally understand where you're coming from as far as the budget goes, right? And I've had to have those discussions with them too, that it's all money permitting. And having the discussion that the manager mentioned earlier is that, well, I paid this much in taxes. But how much, when you really look at it, did you pay to the town versus the county versus the school board and all these other individual independent districts? So, but again, committee budgets probably should expect to be flat, barring some unforeseen change. I at least would not be inclined to increase the property tax rate. I'm willing to look at an increase in the FPL franchise fee because residents have more control over that, and the burden falls more so on the commercial side of the ledger rather than our residents. Although, again, I also want to point out that if we were to look at an increase in the property tax rate, that would hit businesses like Chella's a lot harder, I think, than an increase in the franchise fee. But again, I'm also committed to bring out my pencil, working with staff, and making sure that we have exhausted every other opportunity to prevent that before we get there. And that's what I'm going to be doing. And with that, I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to open up the floor to my colleagues. Let's work left to right, my left. So we'll begin with Councilman Fernandez and then work our way down all the way to Councilman Cuadra Garcia. Councilman Fernandez.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the opportunity. I think when I ran, the majority of the residents that I was able to speak to really were in favor of just having better services, and those services include, things that the manager proposed this evening, including, the SFM. I'm a huge proponent of the Optimus Park. There are many things on what he highlighted this evening that I would be in favor of, including raising the millage rate, not necessarily to what where he wants it to be, but certainly I'd be open to that. One thing interesting about the franchise fee is that if the numbers are correct, so we're paying 3% now plus 10% to FPL for them to build their reserves for the hurricane that they went through, right?
Yes, sir.
So 13% currently, we would be reducing, the 10% goes away, and we would be, according to what possibly we can add another 3. So it would be from 13 down to
6.
6, if I'm, yeah, the math is correct, okay. So, and that would give us about $1.5 million.
Yeah, for every percent, just because that's the consumption, right? But thankfully that the FPNL franchise fee, as more people come online, right? More accounts come online, like the development in the golf course and so forth. Those would increase, right?
Right.
So, but the every percent equates to more or less $500,000. Yeah.
Okay.
So the going from 3 to 6 would be an extra $1.5 million.
Right. And one thing that we have to keep in mind, I think, as the mayor pointed out, that some of it is offset not necessarily by our residents, but by our commercial and business owners too, which we want to be friendly with them, but there's certainly a way that we don't have to have the burden of the increase solely on the residents. So I'll leave it there. I think I like the plan. I certainly am in favor of a lot of these amenities. Look, I personally want this town to be the most beautiful in the county, and I believe that we are, but we have improved. I think that there's some room for improvement, and that includes our right-of-ways. That includes our tree canopy. I had a huge, a big discussion and a meeting with somebody who is active and wants to increase our budget for the trees. And these are residents just like other residents that we've heard this evening. So we should be mindful of all the residents and not just some. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Councilman. Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple points. First and foremost, a reminder of, like you mentioned, what we're here for. We're here to kind of just have the budget presented to us, get our first look at it, and move on to the next step on Tuesday of setting a cap rate. I understand that is the mission of the day, but that being said, it would be very helpful, maybe not for the whole public, but at least for us up here, for purposes of grabbing a pencil and going through it, like you said. Let's have this presentation the way that we have it, but then sitting next to it should be the actual budget, line item by line item, so that we can see where are the line items changing, where are the places that we can take a pencil to and scratch. Because when I look at the line items on this part of the presentation, and I see administrative transfers going from one number to another number, I don't know what that is. I don't know what is being added. I don't know what's being subtracted. Administration, I don't know what's in that $2.4 million. And while I can take a guess, that's all it is, a guess. And I'm not trying to guess with the residents' money. So I get it. I know that you were working to the wire on this, but I think that all of these numbers are based on a budget, on an Excel spreadsheet that was created by you. Just hit Control P and print out the actual budget for us. I understand that's a lot of paper, and maybe we don't want to do it for everyone. Residents can always request it as a public record, but for us at least, it would be very helpful to have it. And I would ask that it be sent to me. I don't know if my colleagues want it, but that it be sent to me after this meeting, so that between now and Tuesday, we can actually take a pencil to it, as the mayor said, primarily because if we're trying to set our cap rate, I understand it's very easy and very tempting for me to just say, okay, what was the proposed fully funded rate again?
2661, I think.
2.6372, and then, okay, we come down from there. But hey, if I can take a look at the budget and say, okay, right away, then, hey, you know, we don't have to set a budget cap rate at that amount. What were you gonna say?
What is published for the special call meeting does have typically the line item detail every year. However, I do want to state that Florida statute does not require a budget detail like that to set the millage, the tentative millage rate.
Absolutely, and
But-
that's what I understand 100%. I'm just saying, if I can avoid setting a cap rate of now I lost it, 2.6372, because that's what I'm tempted to do. Because as JC mentioned, Councilman Fernandez mentioned, I am very big on making sure that our services are on par where they need to be. So I'm very tempted to just take your word for it and say, all right, 2.6372. But if I can take a look at it and say, okay, right off the bat, take a few things out, then maybe we don't need a 2.6372, maybe a 2.6 flat or something like that. Maybe a midpoint, a 2.3. All I'm saying is it would be useful, especially, and maybe even not even for this meeting, but definitely after this meeting, it would be very helpful to have that full budget in helping guide the decision on the cap rate. While I understand that the statute doesn't require it, it's helpful.
It will be published as it has been, at least for the last 6 years that I have been here. Whenever we have set the tentative millage rate, it has always been part of the attachments for that meeting, which that should be published, I believe, either Wednesday or Thursday.
Yep.
But
Well,
you will have that prior
yeah.
to the publishing of it.
And some of the feedback that we'll get from the council tonight, like for instance, I'd like to get some sort of idea of whether there's at least for whatever reason, right? If there's a support in the council for the FPNL franchise fee, that could be something we could implement for next Tuesday and build that into the budget that you're asking for.
Correct,
right?
but that's kind of my point, though. I can't say, I think that the millage rate and the franchise fee are inextricably intertwined.
Yes.
Because you are lowering the millage rate by increasing the franchise fee. That we can weigh the pros and cons of it all day, but like I can't tell you, to give you a different example, have the staff come back with a lower budget on Parks and Rec because I think that we're overfunding on a particular item. I can't do that.
No,
because
I
don't have
understand.
those numbers.
We get it.
So
We'll provide
that's
the,
it.
we'll provide the, and probably the more important part, because when we're talking about the franchise fee or the millage rate, we're talking the revenue side of the budget. But what's more important, and I think what you're looking for, is the expense side of the budget, is what can be eliminated, which obviously will lead to what we set the millage rate and what we set. But I think you're looking at, for that detail on the expense side of the budget, for you to look and see if there's areas that we can modify.
I'm a big fan of give me all the information and let me parse it out.
Yeah.
I don't like being, these presentations are really good for synthesizing information, but when I sit down by myself in my room studying this, I want all of it. I want revenue side and I want expense side. Because I want to see why a certain revenue went up or down.
Right.
I want to see why an expense is going up or down. And I'll track past year's budgets to see what's happening. I rabbit hole into this.
Yeah, you'll have it. You'll have everything you need, anything you
And
want.
to be clear, what I'm asking for tomorrow at this point is the budget as done at 2.0732, and then also the budget that you did at the 2.6 mark. That way I can see where the changes are, and then I can try to see where it can be penciled. Aside from that, I mean, in terms of the $2.8 million difference, it's quite striking. I'm just gonna put it out there. I'll say the quiet part out loud that the town manager's not allowed to say. I do think irresponsible budgeting led us here. That's just me. I think that sometimes it's a race to the bottom and a race to have the lowest possible tax rate when at times the proper thing is to keep it where it is, or make sure that we're providing for the services of our residents. I've spoken to countless residents. I've actually spoken to some of our residents who are considered budget hawks. Even they agree. A minor increase, a stepping increase, so long as there is a tangible deliverable attached to that, so long as there is a net gain to the community, they're okay with it. Where they're not okay with it is government inefficiency, with overspending, wasteful spending, spending on things that, whether they're right or wrong and whether you agree or disagree, in their opinions, don't belong to the town or shouldn't be spent money on. And again, that's where having the line item really comes into play. As a last note, on the franchise fee, on the one hand, I'm very much of the opinion, you know, it doesn't really matter if they stab you in the neck or the heart, they still stabbed you. But that being said, where I find it most striking is in the chart showing the difference between the town and other municipalities, that we are just about half of everyone else. We're the only one at 3%. And just so that I understand, by the way, are there any municipalities that have not opted, in Miami-Dade County, that have not opted into the franchise fee? Like, is this all of the municipalities in Miami-Dade County?
We don't, I'd have to do an analysis about municipalities, but I could tell you that the county, when theirs expired like 4 years ago, that we were under their umbrella, that's when we had to establish our own standalone one. They had a 3%, and that's why we always had for many years 3%, because we were under their umbrella. They opted not to renew it, only because, and it's something I found out today, in a Zoom meeting with the county mayor and a whole bunch of all the other cities in Miami-Dade County, is because the county, in order to enact a franchise fee, has to take it to a vote of the electorate. Different than our charter, right? Our charter allows for the council to establish that franchise fee like you did 4 years ago. So the county has opted not to take it to a vote of the electorate. That's the only reason why they did not renew their franchise fee. But it is something that they are going to, the county mayor directed county staff to include that. They're apparently on a similar schedule to we are for a charter review. That's something that the county is going to look at modifying in the county charter to allow the county commission to make that call.
All right. As to the hurricane surcharge that you brought up, is that a creature of statute or a creature just privately come up with by FPL?
FPL has to petition the Public Service Commission through, that's similar to their rate hikes, and anything that is a change in their rate structure has to be approved by them. So it is something, and it is time certain expiration. So subject to there being some huge catastrophe in the state of Florida, once again, that is set to expire at the end of December.
Okay, so that kind of leads to my question is, how does it come back? Because we actually haven't had a true major storm here in South Florida. We've been very lucky. I know some other parts of the state have not, but we've been very lucky. Is there a chance that we do get hit by a storm and then FPL brings this fee back, and then on top of that, we still have our 6%
Yeah, and it's not necessarily, it's not in the entire state of Florida. It's only because FPL is unique to other electrical utilities. It has to be only in their service area. So if there's a storm that hits whatever, Central Florida, Northern Florida, where FPL doesn't have a significant presence, then we won't be affected. And just getting hit by a storm doesn't necessarily trigger it. It has to be, and I think that what triggered this was the 2 or 3 back-to-back that they saw on the west coast of southwest Florida, that they got hit, and they were significant storms, and they got hit multiple storms in a single season. So a single storm, even a single significant storm, probably wouldn't trigger it. It would have to be a successive occurrence of multiple storms.
Just to understand though, for it to come back, there's some
They have to
form
go and
of
petition the public.
process.
Yes.
Okay, got it. And then the last thing I just wanted to get out there, again, I don't know what the fully funded committee budgets look like under the proposed fully funded budget millage rate, the 2.6372. I don't know what the committee budgets look like, but again, I most of us up here served on a committee, or no, all of us. We understand that our committees are the heart and soul. They are our representatives to the community. They are what bring people to play and to work and to live in the town. Without them, I don't think we get very much done. They sell our town for us. So that is a budget priority for me. I do consider that a budget priority. Aside from that, I almost forget to say this because it's second nature, like breathing, and I don't have to think about breathing, but our police. I'm sorry, I am not willing to not have the special details. I'm not willing to not have the Grinch Busters. I'm not willing to not have the overtime. That to me is an absolute non-starter. Other than that, I'm done.
Councilman Garcia.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Manager, thank you for that presentation. As always, very informative. The staff for putting it together. Melissa, thank you so much. And I like the historical millage rate chart. I think that, as you can see from 2004 to 2025, the millage rate has either gone down or stayed the same, right? There's been challenges, I mean immense challenges. The recession of 2008, 9, 10, when we persevered. The pandemic and the inflation that happened after that, and we persevered. Tough choices had to be made by the leaders of this town and by the staff and by the residents letting us know what they think. But we persevered and we made those decisions. Is our budget perfect? Does it meet 100% of everybody's needs? Absolutely not. We can always do better. But I think that doing better means finding efficiencies more than it does raising millage rates. Because we've shown that we can do it. Because the vast majority of residents are very happy with the service we provide. Are there one-offs? Yes. Is there areas that we can do better? 100%. But the majority of residents tell me, when I talk to them, that they're very proud to live in the town of Miami Lakes. They're very proud of the services we provide due to the hard work of the staff, the committees, who I believe if we didn't have them, our budget would be millions of dollars more because we'd have to pay for it ourselves and we'd have to hire 30 more employees. You guys, actually, the investment we give you pays for itself 20 times. So thank you for that. We really appreciate it. But we've come through. And we've come through because we have decided that being efficient is the number one priority, and making sure at the same time we provide services like police, like parks, like streets. Some of these decisions, as the Vice Mayor said, overtime for police, whatever the police needs, that's a no-brainer. We're going to do that. But we've been able to do that by the carry forward that comes. Inevitably, we get more money than we think we're going to get. And we plug the holes. And it's like a leaking ship. Sometimes one leak starts here, you put a finger there, the next, you put a finger there. But the town has done this for 20 years, 25 years, actually, 25 years. Because we make the hard decisions. As the Vice Mayor said and the Mayor said, we look at every line item. We ask the manager to give us as much information as possible and the staff. And we've done the best we can do, and we've paid the bills. And we're the most transparent town in the entire state, I believe. Hence, all the awards we win, all the audits that come in with zero findings show that we're spending our money, and we're showing where we're spending it, and we're not wasting our money, because we win awards every year because of that. So the residents looking at this and are here today could be proud of how we handle your tax dollars, every single penny. So I am not for raising the millage rate, because I see here that the millage rate either stayed the same or gone down. And yes, there's been challenges. And yes, we've struggled. But we've persevered and we've done it. Now, the only thing that I don't like doing, and I think is correct, is paying for our budget with one-time expenditures, or taking money from the park and we have to put the money back. But we put the money back. And as far as priority with Optimus Park, Mayor, I will be pushing Optimus Park as I pushed before. I think we need to get that done, absolutely. But I believe in our staff. I believe in all the manpower and woman power up here and brain power that's up here, along with our residents, that we can do this, and we can do it by not raising the millage, at least keeping it flat, being more efficient, and maintaining the services at the levels that you deserve as residents. It's gonna be difficult. It's not easy. But we've shown we've done it. 25 years of data right here. That line's going down, not up. And certain times we had to drop it because of worldwide catastrophes when it comes to economies. There's nobody's fault that happened. But we reacted, we came together as a town, and we made it happen for the residents of the town. And I ask you to keep faith in us and give us your feedback and call us and email us and meet with us. And we're going to, one by one, answer all your questions and make sure that you're happy with the decisions we make, because you deserve that. But again, we've done it before because this is our job to do it. And I think we can do it again. I just do not feel that raising the millage rate at this time is the right thing to do. Keeping it flat is something I'll definitely entertain. And just trying to be more creative is our job, right? Trying to figure out how to make it work, knowing the priorities that are out there. So those are my 2 cents, and thank you for listening.
Councilman Herzberg.
Thank you, Mayor. And, you know, I share the mayor's sentiments that we should try to do everything we can, and same with Councilman Garcia to keep the millage flat. Whether or not that's practical is a different discussion that we'll get into in detail later. Again, this is for us to hear from the residents and for us to hear from ourselves too, right? We don't have that many opportunities to all sit and discuss, and that's where I see this as the biggest benefit, so we can all try to get on the same page. I remember for years we've been discussing about minimum standards. I don't want minimum standards. Minimum standards means minimum. Whether or not we can have a flat rate that gives above minimum standards is the question that I want, and I share the sentiments of the Vice Mayor. I know you will provide it to get that line by line item of the different budgets. The franchise tax obviously is a way to look at things. It's a tax. Right? It is a tax to residents, but it's also a tax to businesses, and it's a consumption tax. So, you know, a warehouse that has refrigerators is going to pay more into the tax than a home, a single-family home. So that's where I'm open to that discussion. I don't see, maybe we can find it, but I don't see where, with the police budget going up and just costs of everything going up, I don't see where we can not raise something. I don't want to raise anything. The franchise tax, I think, makes the most sense. I think it hits, I have to do the math, honestly. I think if it's a matter of raising the franchise tax or raising the millage, but you do the math and the millage is less per month per resident, then I'll raise the millage, because if the average resident's spending $300 a month in electricity, but we're raising it the millage rate less per month, then that will make sense. It's not about what looks good in words. It's about what makes sense for actual relief. But I will share this, and while campaigning and after, people were always, one of the most common complaints was, well, I don't see the police. I don't see the police driving. I remember speaking to one resident saying, well, if I told you you would pay $10 more a month, but then you would see the police more, would you be happy? And that resident said, yes, I would. And that's really some of the discussions that we have to have, honest discussions we have to have up there is, are we willing to provide more services like police? I don't want to touch the police budget. Everything needs to be funded. And if the manager says, listen, we can fund this, but we got to raise the millage rate slightly to make sure the police is fully funded, then I'm not going to touch the police budget, right? And unfortunately and fortunately, you know, negatives, positive negatives to it, this town has been on a race to the bottom on the millage rate. And if you look at it, we are the lowest millage rate, in my opinion, in Miami-Dade County. Why? First of all, Doral funds their parks through a bond, so their total millage rate is higher than Miami Lakes. And Aventura and Sunny Isles have the pleasure of putting 300-400 folios in a few acres that we're lucky to get 5 or 20 folios. So this town has been, by far, when you look at the totality and the circumstances of all the other municipalities, we have the lowest millage rate in this county. I remember having a discussion with somebody saying, well, why don't we just get rid of the town because why pay the extra millage? Sure. But Miami-Dade County has an unincorporated millage rate, which is barely lower than ours. It would have saved somebody $50, $60 a year. So we have to have detailed discussions. I want to do everything we can to keep it flat. I don't necessarily believe that I will vote for the highest possible budget next week. Okay, listen, it's a cap. So I'm okay to vote for higher than flat just to not tie our hands in case the final budget from the sheriff comes back and it's out of control, right? But I also don't want to say, let's just make it 2.7 and see what happens. But one question I do have for the manager, and understand how it works, we do typically have a carry forward. How is that working? Why can't we work that carry forward into why do we need to have, it's nice to have, don't get me wrong, but why do we need to have $1 million, $1.5 million every carry forward? Why can't we try to work that in?
But we have to take into account, if you remember last year, when you look at just operating budget of last year's budget, we actually operated last year. So the money that this council appropriated right throughout the year, we spent what we were appropriated. In other words, there was actually an operating deficit of just a little over $200,000, right? What the council did during the carry forward was really, carry forward is probably a misnomer because carry forward connotes the idea that it's carried over from the previous year, and it's not. What you allocated was mostly fund balance. So we really allocated extra savings account, right? Extra piggy bank is what we allocated. So there was not, $1 million, $2 million worth of extra money. It was just sitting extra in our piggy bank. But the actual operating budget was actually right there. We spent almost exactly what this council allocated. So operations-wise, we spent what the council gave us last year, some of which included previous year's mid-year carry forward, but there was not an operating surplus. Exorbitant, $2 million operating surplus that there was just extra money that was found. It was savings account.
Right.
Piggy bank.
Right. I guess we'll discuss the details because every year we have a significant carry forward. So I just want to figure out the details.
But there have been aberrations, right? The last few years, especially since COVID, and I don't want to keep blaming COVID because COVID, is not responsible for everything in the world. But COVID is responsible for, extra funded money from the federal government, all these different allocations, a lot of different programs that were established. And also then we had a period there of an inability to perform, right? Last year we didn't have that as much. But the previous 2 or 3 years we had an inability to perform because many of our contractors relied on workers that were minimum wage workers. They were, during COVID, they'd rather stay home and get paid from the allocations that were there. There were a lot of factors that played into it. I believe that we are coming into a time period that we're going to go back to what we used to see before on carry forward allocations that were a few $100,000. But in a $20 million budget, a couple $100,000 is not a big, variance.
Okay, and just a few more comments. And then you bring up a good point. One of the other things that we see it in STD budgets is increase in wages, especially minimum wage in the state. So it is very difficult, and it is true this town has been able to do it, but to keep taxes, continue to lower it as expenses continue to go up. I couldn't do it in my business, right? Our rates go up, or else you're not making the same amounts of money. So we're going to dig into it. Again, I'm open to the franchise fee increase, especially given that for whatever reason, past councils have been very conservative, fiscally conservative, which is a good thing, but we are completely on the other end of the spectrum in the county. But it's about the math. It's just about where the money comes from. If the franchise fee is going to cost the resident more than a slight millage increase, then is it really, which one makes the most sense? So I just want to all I'm saying is to my colleagues, when we come back next week, I don't want to just approve the highest budget possible. I really do want to have a discussion to get that down. It's a cap. I'm not saying I'm going to require that we maintain the flat because we shouldn't tie our hands, but the goal is to get down to the current rate.
Councilman Cuadra Garcia.
Thank you. Creative is the key word. Our colleague said it, creative. Basically, I'm going to echo on Vice Mayor. Being fiscal, conservative, and responsible is key factor number one. This week that I was planning to go out and do some traveling, that's not going to happen. I'm actually going to meet with town staff and do a lot of homework because there's a lot to learn. And I'll make sure that whatever I vote on, it'll be the best for all of us. And I definitely will be looking into things that we don't need, like bling blings, whatever they may be. They won't be approved by me. So that's why this whole entire week I'll be meeting with staff so we can figure out what it is that we need and what are the things that we don't need. It's a no-brainer. Public safety, fire, police, is everybody. We all need it, and we understand that. So that one's perfect. We have it right on spot. But all the other things that we don't need, that I think, I'm going to make recommendations. And like I said, whatever bling blings are that we don't need, I'm not going to support them. So I will be doing a lot of homework this weekend. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think that's our word of the evening, bling bling. So I'm going to close with some comments based on what's been said. And I just want to reiterate to staff and to the manager and for Ms. Reynolds, because I know she always does a summary of our meetings, that my support of any franchise fee increase is not only as a temporary measure, but for me to be willing to rescind my restrictive ordinance that limits what any increase in the franchise fee can go to over that 1.275, it would mean that I am supporting it not to go toward new capital improvement projects. I wanted to go and make sure, as the Vice Mayor said, that core services like the Grinch detail, like the overtime for our police, so we have flexibility to use them in other situations, that is preserved, to make sure that we maintain mulching and sanding our beaches, et cetera, right? I think we can wait on a few additional drainage projects a year or two, especially with the amount that we've already done over the last couple of years between the stormwater revenue bond that we did, as well as the ARPA money that we used toward that. So at least that would be what my support for the franchise fee increase would be conditioned on, that it be only temporary, because I don't want us to now grow into all this money. That was the whole point of me supporting and pushing for the restrictive ordinance. But it would be about making sure that the core services that our residents expect are maintained. Secondly, I definitely agree with Councilman Herzberg. I want to have a conversation with you about what carry forward then means, because I've always been told that when we close out our books at the end of the year, the carry forward comes from projects that came in under budget, which is great, right? And then just money that we need to reappropriate going to next year because the project that it was appropriated for did not go through for whatever reason, whatever the case might be. Because if it's just fund balance, aka our reserves, then I agree to reduce our reserve requirement that I had pushed for. To increase.
Right, and that's one of the things that led that modification from 16.67% to 15% may have led to it didn't account for the entire.
Yeah.
But some of it accounted for some of the
I
fund
get you,
balance being
but
high.
I just I don't want to redefine carry forward to be seen as something that's not necessarily based on money that was unspent, because in many ways that's what it was, right? So. But again, I agree with the points that Councilman Herzberg said. That's really what I wanted to say. And then the other thing is, again, like the sinking fund, we cannot afford to not fund that. I mean, year after year, we constantly blow through that, right? And, so I think if anything, the point that we're learning is, especially when times are good, we need to do more to put money aside, not to find something else to put it toward. At the same time, the reason why, and this will be my final point for the benefit of the public and for staff to get a better understanding of where my head's at, you know, the reason why I'm also open to the franchise fee increase potentially is because year after year we have seen that because of the race to the bottom, and because you know, we've been more, let's call it what it is, you know, trying, you know, been more motivated by how we're going to be perceived for political purposes as opposed to doing the right thing. We have not done enough to make sure that we keep up with our needs, right? Instead, we have been deferring and deferring and deferring, and in a way, kind of playing a game of hide the shell and hiding the true cost of government from our residents by doing so, you know, instead of continuing to make the investments we need to make. And after we made such a big push now in the last carry forward process, and, you know, with the vice mayor and with, you know, at the time, council members Goyaso and Ruano being on the council, after we made such a big push to not artificially reduce our property tax rate and to keep it flat last year, you know, in order to not fall further behind, I don't want to take a step backwards. And so I just want to make it clear for staff's benefit as well as for our residents, that would be why I'm supportive of the franchise fee increase if we get there. And the other thing I want to note, though, and I know I said that this would be my last point, but, you know, lawyer, politician, you know, but the last thing I want to note to Councilman Hertzberg's point is that I definitely believe that a property tax increase, right, it's maybe $13 to a resident, like somebody who actually lives here, but to our business community, that cost is going to be substantially higher than, say, in my view, and again, we'll get numbers, I'm sure, soon, that would be much more to them than, say, a franchise fee increase, right, which they can also take measures to control. You know, versus, again, a property owner, like the Graham family, like the family that owns the Winn-Dixie shopping center, they will obviously push whatever increase in taxes that they get onto their tenants, and I think that would be much more harmful to them than this. That's why I'm more willing to look at the franchise fee increase. So I'm in agreement with you there, but I just wanted to clarify why I feel that the property tax rate increase would be the worst way to go, because it's not just about the $13 to the average resident, it's about our business residents too, right, and their bottom line. With that, being that I took a chance for rebuttal, is there anybody else that wants to have a second stab at this? Councilman Fernandez?
Thank you, Mayor. Just for the record, and I didn't go municipality by municipality, but there are 34 municipalities on this sheet, because you were asking about whether they were all on here, and if there weren't, then we can assume that they had no franchise fee. But there are 34, and I believe we have 34 municipalities in the county. So.
That is correct. Anybody else that wants to take a second stab? Councilman Garcia.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to point out to my colleagues that FPL consistently is asking for rate hikes constantly, and they've been saying no to by the state, but they continue to ask that. So just keep that in mind when we consider raising the franchise fee, and consider in the future if that 10% comes off for the hurricane, that fee that they're charging, they're consistently asking. So let's keep that in mind when we decide, hey, if we're going to raise it, how much we're going to raise it. So, you know, they're constantly asking for more money, and that hits our especially our seniors, the electricity bill the most. Thank you, Mayor.
All right. Anybody else wants to take one more?
Mayor, just one last thing. We have scheduled.
Thank you.
So far, one budget briefing between now and next Tuesday. If any of the other council members want to do that, contact me, and then we'll look for an open slot. If anybody, after they do their homework, if they want to do it together, if they got questions, whatever, we'd be more than happy to sit down with any one of you and block out a good 2 or 3 hour time slot to go over the budget with you. So just let me know.
Anyone else? All right. With that, we are now adjourned at 7:57 p.m.